What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
If you understand now, then you must die.
Louie attempted to conjure his special ability, Shadow Striker, at that point. Gardner then performed one of his concealed movements.
What do you think? Each of them is my actual body. I, too, shall die. But now I can take you with me.
Multiple parallel existences launched an all-out assault. Because they were all genuine, beating any one of them would be pointless. Gardner burned his life away to carry out the ultimate attack. It also happened in the blink of an eye, making it difficult for Louie to avoid as he attempted to conclude the battle with Shadow Striker. Louie's replication's major drawback was that only his main body could activate unique skills. Louie could control numerous replications at the same time, but there was no method to compensate for this limitation. It was to be expected given the distinction between a replication and a parallel existence. Louie could make it appear as if he could do it if he was near enough to a replication, but even that would have a time lag that could be fatal against a better opponent. Only Louie's main body could deal the killing blow with someone like that. Louie feared he'd been caught off guard. Everyone understood that the most dangerous part of a fight was shortly before you finished it. Then, you couldn't let your guard down, and his inability to do so, despite knowing better, was a terrible mistake.
Please forgive me, Sir Rimuru. I'm sure I'll make it, and I'll make up for it later.
Louie attempted to brace himself for Gardner's final assault. He had to survive because he couldn't die. But then,
I'm not going to let it happen. So, Louie, I'll offer you power as well.
Louie believed he heard a strange voice.
Oh, that voice. No.
He realized right away that this voice should never be considered or pursued in any way. Perhaps that was a foolish move for the head of an intelligence agency to make, but Louie made it without hesitation.
That is all right. The skill you will gain is known as.
Louie recognized this power as if he had been born with it. He also became aware that his replications were now separate bodies within this field of consciousness that seemed to multiply itself 1,000,000 times. It could only mean one thing. Louie had gained parallel existence as well.
I'm going to die, but it's also the end for you. Try my...
Is that the end of your will, then?
What? No, this must be your main body.
That is correct. The same is true for this one. If you realize it, you should die.
Damn you.
Gardner had nothing left this time.
Thousand Shadows Death.
Louie's shadow spread out, transforming into 1,000 arms that snatched Gardner. This was the result of Eye of the Moon in action, one of the abilities provided by Tsukuyomi, Lord of Moonshade, the ultimate gift. Nothing could have fitted him more perfectly since it gave Louie the power to control shadows at will. He could utilize shadows to investigate whatever portion of the world he desired, and he could effortlessly move to shadows wherever they were. When combined with parallel existence, he could construct numerous pairs of arms to attack individuals freely from the shadows, a potent tactical move.
Go ahead.
Gardner yelled as he was restrained.
Rejoice in your victory. You will never be able to defeat Lady Valgrind or Sir Granite.
But his life was cut short before he could finish the idea, as a result of Louie's insta-kill.
Sir Rimuru has already looked after Lady Valgrind. Benimaru, who is much stronger than I, is taking care of this Granite you mentioned. Much like myself, I suppose. But that's none of your business.
Louie vanished without a word, letting Gardner be consumed by the darkness.
Volume 15, Chapter 5. The Truth About the Emperor. Part 1.
Damrada couldn't help but ponder, alone, as he guarded one of the 8 gates.
Why did it turn out like this?
Nothing could possibly be worse. Yuki had fallen into Emperor Rudra's grasp, stripped of his free will like all of his comrades. Damrada was tasked with keeping an eye on everyone by Rudra, and he had little choice but to obey. However, Rudra had just issued a new directive. After the handover was complete, Yuki was to join the Emperor's flagship while being kept under the observation of another person. So started the fierce aerial conflict. Single digits ranking 6th or above were permitted to discover the Marshal's real identity, but they were not permitted to reveal it to anyone else. Damrada, whose business regularly led him to foreign nations, had his memories modified for extra security.
Yes, I promised him something. And that was...
Once he saw the Marshal make herself known, Damrada remembered it. The next wave of vivid memories was followed by many more. Although he had previously remembered the most significant promise he had ever made to Rudra, this time he also remembered why keeping it was so crucial.
Well, what comes next?
There wasn't time to mull it through. He had recently encountered the demon Lord Rimuru, who was a very lovely person and didn't appear to pose much a threat. He shouldn't have been able to obstruct their efforts to capture Veldora once he was imprisoned in Velgrin's alternate dimension. In fact, Veldora was now thoroughly outmatched, giving Rudra the upper hand over Gi. But Damrada didn't care about any of that. Or even to Rudra. Damrada had a mental clarity that was like a dense fog being lifted, and he started to consider what was really best for Rudra. However, the Demon Lord Rimuru made his move with genuinely unprecedented violence before he could respond to that query. Why did he ever believe that he wasn't a danger? Damrada wished he had the opportunity to question himself about the matter. There was no question that he was a force to be reckoned with because he managed to escape Velgrin's seal. But more than that, Damrada became acutely aware of how naive he had been as soon as Rimuru appeared. With his golden eyes, the Demon Lord gave him one glance before moving on. He gave Damrada a chilly gaze as if he was unaware that Damrada was his adversary. Kondu reacted right away, but his attack was unsuccessful.
Do you only have that? So I don't even have to be cautious around you. You all can wait until later. Enjoy being frightened. And until I can deal with you, try to avoid being killed.
That is what Rimuru's eyes appeared to be saying. Damrada and the others appeared to him to be already dead. This also applied to Emperor Rudra. If events continued in this direction, they would all undoubtedly perish. But in this case, what did Rimuru's tactical win actually mean? It required meeting two requirements. First, take back Veldora. 2. Get rid of the invaders. The Demon Lord's most steadfast supporter was Veldora. It was not acceptable for Rimuru to lose his free will. He must have been prepared to cope with Velgrind if he had traveled so far to get here, and from Damrada's perspective, it was impossible to foretell how that combat would turn out. He had no method of assessing the massive contest that was taking place in some distant land. What about getting rid of the invaders? Although Rimuru was referred to as a pacifist, he wasn't a nonviolent person. His domains had already experienced countless assaults, all of which he had successfully resisted using whatever tactics he saw fit. The Land of Monsters won numerous battles as a result of Veldora's assistance. The aggressive actions of the Empire would never be pardoned by Rimuru. There was no more room for negotiating. He believed that the only option was to execute each and every Imperial soldier. In light of this, negotiating was useless. The only viable option was to fight to the death. Even worse, there was no prior agreement they had made regarding this conflict. Therefore there was no assurance that surrendering would result in pardon. When Rimuru arrived to discuss, the Empire put up a trap for him because they didn't see the sense in such efforts. They were no longer able to put their faith in one another, and it was obvious that no more negotiations would ever be reached.
We ought to have put in considerably more effort to stop His Majesty.
Damrada had severely misjudged the military prowess of the Empire as well. Since he didn't see how they could lose, he felt they could decide how they would win. Before his enemies could begin to rebel, he planned to demonstrate the power of the Empire, crush them, and swallow them up. As long as they won the battle, they were free to change their government, create a puppet state, or do whatever they pleased. This was how the Empire increased its realm, but this time, they committed a serious error in judgment. There was no guarantee that even Emperor Rudra would be safe, despite the fact that the two sides were evenly balanced on the battlefield. Damrada's depression was understandable, of course. It should be remembered that the commitment Damrada had made to Rudra was his main concern. Damrada pondered what the best course of action for him might be because he had no doubt that Rimuru wanted the Emperor killed as well. He wanted to keep his commitment to Rudra, but he wanted to do it himself.
Oh, it seemed so difficult to vanquish Rimuru.
As he considered the situation, Damrada shuddered slightly. The survivors of their flagship, which had been encircled by horrifying magic, now guard the 8 gates.
How could this possibly be considered a fair fight?
Because to him, this appeared to be nothing more than a terrible mistake. And then came to now.
Did I make you wait long?
In front of Damrada's eyes was a tiny child who was beaming. Ultima, a servant of the demon lord Rimuru, was one of the 7 primal demons and possessed an incredible amount of strength.
He has primals working for him, and he has even given them power.
She was much more amazing in person. That terrifying death streak was far more accurate and potent than it ever was, showing that the demons had really evolved. Without even worrying about all the eyewitnesses, Rimuru had opened a huge portal to summon them all, and he then did something to everyone present. Although there hadn't been enough time to look into the specifics, Ultima had now provided them with a definitive response. The demon appeared to be amused by herself.
You must have worked it out. Yes, it is correct. I feel a lot better now that Sir Rimuru gave me a lot of power.
A pleasant anecdote for Ultima to share. Damrada saw it as his worst nightmare. Even though he had foretold it, a mere demon lord was not capable of giving a primal power. This demonstrated how remarkable the Demon Lord Rimuru actions were and that not even Gi Crimson had evolved the primals under his control. However, Damrada still made an effort to overpower him. He was required to battle all out against the demon Ultima in order to keep his pledge to Rudra.
You know, I haven't always aimed for the highest standard. Even if I have to take a much more difficult route, it doesn't matter as long as I can accomplish my goal in the end.
Damrada gave up fretting. Even when staring at Ultima and the immense power she flaunted, he remained unafraid and stood firm.
You still up for this, huh?
Sure that. I am a knight serving my master, and I will display all of my strength for you.
Great. I cannot wait. Then let's get started.
Thus the battle between Damrada, the second-ranked single-digit, and the Pain Lord, Ultima started. Ultima laughed while looking at Damrada. She could sense his power, which was amazing even for a saint and incredibly strong for a human. She might not have been able to win if she hadn't evolved.
I'm aware of this, He and Hinata are roughly on par, huh? She seemed like a natural foe to all monsters. But it appears to me that this guy has only practiced on people, and single targets, for that matter. His personality type can be somewhat annoying.
Ultima was aware of the inconvenience caused by those who developed and created their own skills as opposed to receiving them from others. Hakuro was a wonderful example of someone who could do that. He seemed to have an infinite amount of strategies at his disposal. His strength came from adapting and using those skills, which were alien to higher forms of existence like herself. People lived on a lower plane of existence than demons. A small amount of magic force was all that was required for them to launch an attack. Ultima, who was at the absolute top of the demon race, fit that description. She didn't have to put any effort into being an expert at manipulating magic. It was something she was born with. Every desire she made was immediately fulfilled. That's what magic was, and no one dared even attempt to compete with its incredible adaptability. Ultima thought the only opponents who could defeat her were other primals or wild cards like true dragons until recently. She later realized that this assumption was incorrect as a result of her conflict with Velgrund. Despite being vastly outmatched, she and her allies put up a valiant fight against her. They even defeated one of her split bodies, albeit even that possessed only around 10% of Velgrund's strength. But at the same time, they learned that misusing their might could result in a loss to a lower-ranked foe. Numerous lessons could be learned from the subsequent fights.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Edgar Fuentes, JV, Dirty Old Hobo, Gonsi Direco, Thomas, Jay, Christ, Juan Ignacio, Joshua Cousins, Jose Hernandez, Jerry Sladek, Stone Larone, Alfonso Smith. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.